Listen totally.
Thanks, Corla. Well, I don't know Dr. Niall Muldoon, but I suspect that his qualifications are considerable, seeing as he saw off competition from excellent advocators for children's rights, such as Senator Gillian Van Turnout and others. So I can only trust that his capability is considerable, and I too would like to wish him well in his post. I think the fact that we're looking at the appointment of a new Ombudsman, however, gives us a chance to look at the role of the Ombudsman's office, consider it as maybe a new juncture, look back at what's been good about the office and what areas we might be able to strengthen it. I think it has been quite a considerable success in many ways. We know that the aims of the Children's Ombudsman are threefold. On the one hand, to examine and investigate complaints with regard to services. I think the Ombudsman has done a good job in this. It is notable that most of the complaints that they have dealt with have come in under the headings of health and education, and in my experience they have played an incredibly positive note. I suppose the only warning sign maybe is that the overwhelming bulk, 97% of the complaints, actually come from adults rather than children themselves, and I think this is an area that we need to attention to. How do we empower children to speak up more for themselves? But I think generally, in terms of service provision, the Ombudsman has been an incredibly positive contributor. I think what we need to look at is the fact that when we talk abstractly about children's rights, we can't divorce that from the economic context in which our children are growing up, and the record levels of child poverty, the growing homelessness, the fact that there are 741 children sleeping in hostels in Dublin in November last year shows that we need to be doing more than talking about the rights of children. We need to address their economic needs, and that is integrated with broader policies which are in contradiction to the neoliberal agenda being imposed by this government. I think in terms of areas of advice regarding children's rights and research, again, the Ombudsman has done very good work. I think working in relation to, for example, the cases of the Roma children and the racial profiling of traveller children which existed in terms of An Garda Síochána, which when we tried to raise these issues in the House, myself and Deputy Wallace were referred to as being a disgrace by the former Minister for Justice, Alan Shatter, and yet it did become obvious that racial profiling exists. And I think this is an area that we need to strengthen the hand of the Ombudsman, and that there is a role to play, because there have been some very worrying trends in, for example, our childcare reporting project revealed that 1 out of every 4 childcare cases that end up in the courts involved parents where at least one parent was a member of an ethnic minority, and that African families are 20 times more likely to have a care order placed against their children. Now, we know that the policy is that it's best for children to be raised with their parents, and when they have to be removed from their parents, that removal should be linked to a reunification plan. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that there can sometimes be cultural differences that are not understood and that need to be factored in. I think if we're really serious about looking at the Ombudsman role, and I think the first 10 years of the project have been largely beneficial, we need to do more. And I'd like to put to the Minister a number of concrete measures. Number one, we need the Children's Ombudsman to be represented on the new Garda Authority. It's an absolute necessity. The Ombudsman has spoken for this role, and if the new Garda Authority is to be meaningful and genuinely accountable, then I think there's a role for the Ombudsman on that. We need to have stronger actions against public bodies that breach children's rights. It's not enough of a deterrent there at the moment. We need to look at mechanisms for how that can be done. And I think critically, the whole area of the children who are languishing incarcerated really inside direct provision. This has to be addressed. There has to be a lifting of the embargo on the Children's Ombudsman ability to investigate children's rights in cases of direct provision. We all know that their efforts to do so have been absolutely thwarted by the Department of Justice, and this is simply not good enough. If we talk about cherishing all children of the nation equally, it has to start at our most vulnerable, and I would be well in favour of extending the powers of the Ombudsman, because I think they've done a good job and they can be empowered to do an even better one.
Well, Margaret,